In the last video, we finished with our SQL command, which pulls back the data we need for our custom object. I have made one change to the columns being selected in that I have added the document ID, doc_GUID, from the ADS document table. This allows us to have at least one value that is definitely unique. I'll copy this to the clipboard, and now it is time to create the database view definition, which is essentially a new table in the system that will collect the data when the SQL command is run. To start, go to System Administration, down to Balance Tables, and then click Database View Definition. The screen contains a table which is very simple to use, as each line created only contains 3 values. The first is the view name, which is the name of the new table. The second value is the query, which is where you will paste your SQL command. And the third is the status, indicating whether it is active or closed. I've already added the new view, but I will add another line just to show you how that looks. Click Add below the table and then enter the view name, which needs to be one string of characters, and you can replace any spaces with underscores if needed. Click into the query field and paste in your SQL command, then select the status. Once saved, you can edit the query by clicking on the line, scrolling down to the details area and amending the SQL command there. Make sure you save any changes. The next step is to create the user-defined table definition. We will need to use the view we've created, so we will copy the view name ready for pasting into the next screen. If you want to see the new table in action, you can create a very simple SQL query which selects all the columns from your new view name, in this case UVI_docreg. When I run that query, I can see that the correct data is presented. We now have a new table in the database that we can pull data from, but the system doesn't actually understand what each of these columns of data are. So the next step is to define each of those columns to indicate whether they are dates, integers, amounts, and so on. To start, navigate to System Administration, then Data Model, then click User-Defined Table Definitions. To create a new definition, click New at the bottom of the screen and then paste in your new view name as the table name. Remember, it needs to be exactly the same so that the connection can be made in the background. I'm going to get an error message here because I've already created it, but I will use a different value just so that I can show you how to enter the various column definitions. First, enter the title, which in this case is Docs for Registration, and then choose the module that this relates to. I'm going to choose Common as we are dealing with documents. Click Add to define your first table column. On each row, you will need to enter the column name, so it's quite useful to have your selection available to review so that you can copy and paste the values or at least use it as a reference. You can see we have 8 columns to be entered, the 2 from the ADS document table and the 6 indexes from the ADS index table. We'll start off with the document ID. Once you've entered the column name, give it a recognizable title and then choose the data type. There are lots of options to choose from, and I will give a link to a useful website showing information about the different SQL data types in the description below. We will choose variable length character for this column, but there are other options you could choose for a document ID. If you do choose variable length character, or even just character, you will then need to enter the length, which is the maximum length of the string of characters, and enter the same number for the show, which is how many of those characters will be shown in your results. Choose the case as any, and then that is that line done. There is one more column which is attribute. I'll show you an example of that in use if we add another line which is going to be our supplier ID, which is doc index 3. If one of your columns represents an actual attribute, such as our supplier ID, you can link the column to that attribute, and this will allow you later on to get the supplier name in this case and any other supplier information from the supplier master file. There is some other setup to make this happen, and I will put that in a separate video showing how you can expand on the basic setup. Here you can see the finished Docs for Registration definition with all columns defined. The next step is to actually create the custom object, which will use this definition and the database view to pull the data from the system and understand what the results are. See you in the next video.